Hello everyone, and welcome to another Company of Heroes 2 cast. This is the 7th one, and today we have a 2v2 on Across the Rhine with two Wehrmacht. We have Gusenburge with the purple Wehrmacht and Popke with the orange on the right side. We have on the Allies an American Schofield and a St. George appropriately playing British. So how will this go? This is a replay from COH2.org, so thank God for good replays coming out of that. And we have some nice players. This map, let's talk about the map. Pretty standard map. The fuels are deceptively close to the bases. I've seen these rushed a lot in the few games I've played on this map. This map doesn't come up too often. I think a lot of people like to veto it for some reason, but I guess there's that. There's a couple of really strong houses like this one and this one, and there's a bit of heavy cover in the south, quite a bit of heavy cover, but in general a pretty open area. In the middle you have these fortified positions, you know, lots of green cover. Definitely who uses that will come out on top on the map. So we have infantry section in our first engagement, gonna beat these pioneers down. Pioneers had to approach from pretty big open space, so they're probably gonna inflict decent damage on the infantry section, but be forced to retreat. MG gonna force to retreat the infantry section, but we have a Vickers already taking the house. Vickers very good in houses because of the vet bonuses, giving an increased range when in garrisons. VPs still uncontested. We have a second MG from Povek. Going to suppress the riflemen just in time before they get into a flanking position. Pioneers going to come in and force them back, definitely. But we have a nice flank coming in from rear echelon. Other riflemen squad getting suppressed. Rear echelon going to get in the flank of the MG. Probably deal decent damage, but not enough to prevent these riflemen getting pinned. Meanwhile, these other riflemen are getting massacred by the pioneers, and they're going to be forced to retreat. Likely this engagement will go to the Wehrmacht, as the Americans only have... Actually, these riflemen got unsuppressed. They get unsuppressed, but immediately suppressed again by the MG42. MG42 with only one guy remaining with like half HP probably will survive, as these riflemen are going to get pinned and forced to retreat. This MG just barely making out of the engagement, almost getting to Ved 1. Very nice for the Wehrmacht. Another engagement over here. These infantry sections in cover will be superior to the Grenadiers. So we have a universal carrier coming out very quickly from the British. I kind of agree and kind of don't. Panzerfausts are going to be the bane of his existence, and I think what he might be wanting is upgrading the Vickers K for better effectiveness against snipers. He's being a little too aggressive with it, in my opinion. Just walking past the MG into a Panzerfaust, you don't want to do that. Infantry sections will be coming up to reinforce, but will be taking damage from a flanking unit of Grenadiers, and these Grenadiers will recharge their Panzerfaust very, very soon. I doubt this rank carrier will make it out. We have a mortar choice from Wehrmacht. Looks like both Wehrmacht went standard tier 1 opening. A sniper coming out of Popke, so we have Popke going for sniper and Gusenburg going for the mortar. Now this could be a pretty deadly combination against the British, and if MGs are used correctly to screen the sniper and the mortar, then the Americans can be held back as well. Map control is pretty even at this moment. The Wehrmacht has been winning the engagements mostly, but not usually with any forces left to gain any decisive map control. So we have sniper going to be starting to pick off these riflemen. Rifleman going to run at the sniper, but sniper actually retreating. He could have actually just walked back before taking the last shot and would have been able to, you know, kite back the rifleman. Vickers MG proving its worth, suppressing the Grenadiers, stopping any kind of Wehrmacht advance towards the strategic point, but the mortar is going to force back the MG. And that is right now the key advantage that Gusen has over St. George. being able to just sit back with the mortar. MG going to be repositioned very aggressively. Thankfully, he decided not to do that. That would probably been a bad idea. We have a second MG coming out of St. George. I do not agree with this at all. I think the one MG was good enough, and sticking in there was obviously a mistake. At this point, what St. George should do is look to Tier 1, which he is doing, trying to get out perhaps a mortar pit around this area would be very beneficial for him, especially against the immobile Wehrmacht. Nice flank from three sides onto this MG42 Vet 1, going to be decrewed, no more Vet on that thing. One rifleman squad going to escape with its life. These Grenadiers are not going to be able to reman the MG, and they're going to go down. Should probably pick up the MG with the rifleman. Sniper doesn't want to go in too close. He could actually pick off this one guy, but he decided not to. He decided to kill one of the MG gunners instead. We have another engagement, going to be a Brit push coming up, possibly trying to re-secure the MG, but going to fail pretty miserably because he came up without any kind of reinforcements, and yeah, only one infantry section could not hold back the Wehrmacht tide. This Grenadier squad needs to get the hell out of there before they are wiped, but yeah, they managed to get out. Mortar gaining in a lot of damage on the infantry, almost Vet 1 already, 3 kills. This MG going to possibly be outflanked by these infantry sections, but they are too weak to cause any kind of damage. We have a doctrine selection from Kovke with the COH2 support doctrine. I don't really play with this doctrine all too much or see it, so I will reserve my judgment as much as it doesn't look to be too bad for a TV2 if his ally goes any kind of like assault support to get a heavy tank out, or spearhead doctrine. That can work out. I'm guessing these guys are a team, and also these guys are a team, so I will be commenting on the teamwork as well. So far, teamwork has been pretty non-existent for the allies and pretty low for the Axis, but they haven't needed it, so that's okay. An MG just walking up to this house, bad idea because it's going to get outflanked. Mortar half-track coming out of the COH2 support doctrine, going to deal very much heavy damage to the British. MG going to be forced out of the building, and I do not know what this MG is doing. It's probably going to be decrewed by this Grenadier squad, though, right in the middle of any enemy territory as well. There's a lieutenant coming up trying to assist, but it's going to be too late, probably. If this MG is... Wow, these Grenadiers for some reason just decided to retreat instead of finishing off the MG, which will probably be finished off by this MG42. Here comes the execution. Oh no. Very lucky to have escaped. If that MG had been taken over by the Germans, that would have been pretty bad. Povke already taking up the Panzer Grenadiers should probably think about going for a scout car already, just to counter any kind of American light vehicle, like M20s. Americans looks like they went heavy on Tier 1, going for early bazookas, and looks like something suppressed. Oh, a 50 cal coming out of the Americans from the Lieutenant tier. Very nice usage of the MG to suppress the superior German infantry, and now they will go to town on these Panzer Grenadiers, expensive infantry to reinforce. So anything that this lieutenant can pick up will be very good, especially because these Panzer Grenadiers also give a lot of experience, and lieutenant vetted up is something you definitely want to have. So it looks like there's a Vickers MG over here. So it looks like this guy actually had 3 Vickers MGs that I did not see. Now, that is definitely something I do not agree with. He's getting a scout car, though. Do I agree with the scout car? I kind of do, because it can... We had a British infantry squad lost. Looks like they died trying to throw this artillery flare. Lieutenant going to harass some fuel caches, but probably not going to be able to destroy it. The reason the British armored car is probably pretty good is it can hunt down any German light vehicles with ease, unless a Puma comes out, but I don't think any of these guys had mobile defense, so yeah. So getting medics and artillery, St. George is definitely starting to upgrade his infantry, but he has been losing a lot of units. His unit preservation definitely needs to, you know, get worked on a little bit. So this engagement, the Wehrmacht isn't really taking cover because they don't need it. Infantry section is going to be forced back by a rifle grenade. Really lucky to have escaped, despite having properly used cover, you know, not dodging the rifle grenade, which was really bad. So we have infantry company coming out of the Americans. Pretty good doctrine, really good doctrine, especially for 1v1s and 2v2s. Priest can be a really good support to any kind of heavy armor or medium armor heavy players. And the Rifleman LMGs will give it pretty much equal firepower to Grenadier LMGs. So yeah. So we have a flank coming out. Nice teamwork from the Axis, you know, recognizing that one of them needs help. Unfortunately, these Panzer Grenadiers are not being moved into close range as they should be on these American units. Americans very heavy on tier 1, going mortar half track from the infantry company. Is going to delay teching even further. Heavy tier 1 and tier 2 with the MGs. I do not agree with this because it's, in my opinion, a bit too much infantry for the Americans. Fighting position going down to secure this munitions point, probably a pretty good idea. The south is completely secure for the Americans, so this is excellent play by Schofield, though I think 2 fighting positions is a bit too much. The reluctance of the Germans to just harass the south has been costing them pretty badly, and a Zuka squad going down, so very good pickup from the Axis. Definitely the Allies need to work on their unit preservation. Oh, actually this was not 250 cals, this was one stolen MG42, so I guess the 50 cal was actually just not needed at all, now that I remember that. So he's been going heavily on bazookas, definitely afraid of any kind of early armor. I kind of agree with this, but I kind of don't. Against the OKW, it's much more important to get out these Zooks early. But, you know, they can always be useful. A captain going out, so Schofield going for the tactic to get both lieutenant and captain. If doing this, I would have personally gone for an M20. Yeah, I know he's been going with a lot of bazookas and probably going to get LMGs, but he still has a bit of float of munitions, so he probably could be using some M20 mines. So, Captain is going to take out, hopefully, the half-track. Nah, it's going to get out. Sniper with just a sliver of health getting away. Pack coming out of the Wehrmacht going to also be forced back to the base. Base MG going to stop the overzealous American infantry. So this mortar half-track is a bit unsupported and going to be panzerfausted mercilessly by the Grenadiers. These Grenadiers should be picking up this MG42. AEC going to come to the rescue, and it looks like the Panzerfaust either wasn't fired or misfired. Captain, nice use of the captain to kill this fuel cache. Zuka is very effective against fuel caches, as well as Treks also are very effective against fuel caches. These Grenadiers are trying to get a Panzerfaust off on the AEC, but there's these engineers just in case waiting to repair, so very good play bringing up the engineers with your vehicles. St. George went for Commando Regiment. Commando Regiment can be very useful, though to use Commando Regiment to full effect, you obviously need to use Commandos to full effect. And right now, St. George has lost way too much infantry in the early game to get, you know, much use out of that. Grenadier squad went down, so that's very huge. So we have a Stück free. I do not agree with the Stück free because to counter something like light vehicles, it's just inadequate because light vehicles will just circle around it, and especially infantry, the way more than adequate AC infantry that these Americans are fielding is going to pretty much destroy the Stug. Yeah, that was probably a pretty bad idea. So under this mortar fire, these MGs should probably be repositioned a little bit more conservatively, like around here and here. But yeah, so we have Ostruppen reserve being activated. So we have Ostruppen coming onto the field. Ostruppen reserves. Oh no, this is not Ostruppen reserves. Ostruppen reserves is in mobile defense. Lieutenant almost going down and finishing to run away. This is relief infantry. This ability, I'll talk just a little bit about it. It's basically a version of rapid conscription for Wehrmacht. Rapid conscription gives you 2 squads of infantry, of conscripts. As you gain losses onto the field, I do not exactly remember how many losses you need to you know, accrue to get Ostrupen squad, but it's pretty low. If I recall correctly, I think it's 4 losses. So 4 normal infantry losses will give you a squad of 6 Ostrupen for 90 munitions, and that can happen twice. So you can get 2 Ostrupen squads out of 90 munitions, which is a pretty good bargain in my opinion. It's a pretty underestimated ability. Of course, the micro on top of the micro from Popke has been pretty lackluster, running as Ostrupen onto MGs and not, you know, microing his mortar half track and sniped by bazookas. Looks like on the left, thanks to a little bit of American support, the British have been having a little bit more success, and they managed to get out of Centaur. Now, the Germans don't really have any counters to the Centaur. There's only an AT gun, and that's not sufficient. Centaur is very, very potent anti-infantry vehicle. Despite its nerfs, it's still really good. So we had a time on target going down, and I missed Wehr. Oh, looks like over here, on this defensive position that the Germans had, completely clearing it out, forcing a complete retreat. So here comes the Centaur, going to wreak some havoc on this German infantry, and pretty much going to force the Germans back to their base, if used correctly. He should probably push all the way up to the fuel with this. Looks like no Panzerfaust are going off, though, you know, being undamaged, this Centaur, even a Panzerfaust would not do much. Would probably not take it out. Another Stug coming out, pretty bad idea again. I already explained why the Stug is a bad idea. It's going to get circled around by the AC. Should probably use target tread on it to immobilize it or just slow it down. Unfortunately, it looks like there was a little bit of a micro failing out of the British, and they were vetted AC to a Panzerfaust? No, to a pack shot from the back. So, pretty okay usage of the Stug to bait in the armored car into a pack. So that was a pretty good play. Another thing I really like out of these Wehrmacht is that they went really early on for fuel and munitions caches. The Allies were a little bit too late on it. Well, not too late, but a little bit later on it. And they still have one of their, you know, base points. Just, you know, yeah, one of the adjacent territories to the base are not upgraded. So that's pretty bad. So it looks like we have some time on target being called down over here. With this Lieutenant, you should target the repairing pioneers. Repairing units take extra damage, but nicely, actually, this is better. Taking out the sniper, the retreating sniper. Time on target missing the Stug, and the Lieutenant getting out of his life. So we have a lot of Ostrupen being called onto the field with Ostrupen reserves. This is pretty good usage. Povke can build a howitzer. Right now, I would actually advise him to do that as soon as he builds his Pioneer Squad, because it would probably help him out against the British, who are certainly going to start setting up a little bit of defensive emplacements soon, and also against this defensive position in the south and these MGs in the middle. So we have a pretty big push coming out of the Americans, going to force back the Stug and the mortar half track, almost killing them. Pushing deep into enemy territory, massacring the German infantry as they go in. So very nice bold play. Going to probably be forced back by the Ostrupen reserves. The captain should probably just retreat. Mortar half track pushing up very far. Probably a pretty bad idea. Pack howitzer coming out of the Americans. Pack howitzer can be a pretty good idea, but I think it's a little bit too pushed onto the field. Going to be vulnerable to any kind of pushes. Unfortunately for the Germans, it's well protected by the Centaur, so nice teamwork. Dropping a Shrek out of these Panzer Grenadiers and probably going to wipe them with this Rifleman squad. Nope. Got really lucky on these Panzer Grenadiers. See, that's why you don't push up the mortar half track too much as its range is pretty subpar. You still need to keep it back because of AT guns and shit. Nicely throwing a grenade on these Ostrupen, so we have both grenade tech and weapon racks coming out. Definitely very heavy early tier play coming out of Schofield, which can work out as Americans. Definitely, especially in the later patches, it's become way more viable to not rush a Sherman because of the increased tech cost for the Major, and also the pack howitzer usefulness increasing and the MG usefulness being, you know, buffed. The 50 cal actually got buffed quite a bit in the, I think, the second, you know, a couple patches ago. Got buffed pretty badly, and so now it's a pretty effective unit. As I said, the only thing I would have done differently out of Schofield is getting an M20 utility car. It's just too useful of a unit to not have. At this point, you could have like a couple anti-tank mines all over this area to counteract any kind of mobile medium tanks. Of course, you've only seen Stugs, but you know, you never know. So yeah, exactly. Panzer IV coming out of Busan. There's also a Sherman coming out of the Americans, and nicely placing this Major fairly close to the front lines. Right now, the Germans haven't shown to have any kind of artillery except the mortar half-track and the mortar, so the Major is pretty much safe over here to do whatever he wants. Going to provide a lot of advantages to the Americans, nicely squad wiping some Grenadiers, and also possibly squad wiping these Ostruppen. Should probably work on recapture the attack howitzer as soon as possible. So right now the Americans and the British with their field HQs have a bit of an advantage so far. What the Americans and the British right now are doing a little bit wrong is that they're focusing too much on a laney type gameplay. Earlier on, the Americans were pushing up very aggressively over here, flanking around the forces of the Wehrmacht, which was the correct way to go about it, and right now they're being bottlenecked in a fight that the Axis are better at. This Panzer IV, though, going to be very much in trouble. Riflemen might get wiped by the blob of Ostruppen. Panzer IV, though, looks like we'll be able to escape. Sherman going a little bit too overzealous in the pursuit of the Panzer IV, going to be definitely destroyed by the pack. Big mistake. You need to always be very careful with your American tanks because they're just very, very squishy. So we have a little bit of a British infantry push going to also be repelled by the MGs, and nicely throwing down some artillery, so it will force back a little bit the Germans, unless they want to accept the risk of, you know, eating losses from the artillery. It looks like they will be moving actually forward instead of backwards, which can be a good idea, but it can also be a bad idea. And you know, in case you get forced to retreat, you get forced to retreat through the artillery. That could be pretty dangerous. So Stug going to get the jump on a lot of unreinforced units for the Americans. Looks like the manpower bleed has been pretty heavy on the Americans, and that's the risk of going with this many infantry units. Though it looks like nicely the Centaur going to massacre this flanking infantry push from the Wehrmacht. Unfortunately, these Shreks will be probably... No, they will not destroy the Centaur, but they will definitely force us to retreat and probably destroy this HQ. We haven't seen so far any kind of usage out of the doctrine of St. George, which is why I was a little bit skeptical about it. Munitions point got decapped, so also the Americans cannot reinforce out of the ambulance over here anymore. Forward assembly going to be taken out pretty quickly. Forward assembly is a very squishy building, so yeah, it always goes down very fast. So now this opens a little bit of a breach where the Axis can move in and cap the south and destroy the defenses from behind, which is obviously bad. We have a doctrine service from Rusen. We have the assault support doctrine with the Opel Blitzes and the Tiger tank. So very good doctrine in team games for the Opel Blitz. The Opel Blitz only gives fuel for yourself, but the manpower cost means that it's more effective in team games where, you know, your teammate is going to be able to a little bit cover for your manpower deficiencies, you know, not having as many units onto the field, while you stock up on a lot of resources to get out armor. So that's very good. Busan looks like he went very heavily on Panzer Grenadiers, as much as Pavke also didn't get very many Grenadiers, which might prove a mistake later on. Grenadiers are very important units for the Wehrmacht. So it looks like, as I said, mortars are going to tear apart the defenses along with flanking infantry. There's a pack over here. You should definitely recover at St. George. Recovering packs is a very important thing in team games. Well, in 1v1s too, but especially in team games because they're just very, very potent, even against the more powerful German vehicles like the Tiger. Sherman Firefly looks like it's being produced. St. George has stockpiled a shit ton of munitions, so the Sherman Firefly is definitely a very good choice. I agree with it 100%. utilizing the tulip rockets, which he's already upgrading, good, very good, instantly upgrading, not forgetting about it, you know. Then, you know, going into battle and having your tulip rockets not be upgraded can be a pretty bad surprise. Infantry going to make a little bit of a harassment push, nicely decapping the middle point. VP situation is very much in favor of the Allies. What right now the Allies need to do is make continuous flanking maneuvers on the Germans to keep them off balance, and eventually try to gain a VP, regain their VP advantage, and just try to push for the VP win. It's pretty close. This VP lead is pretty much 3 minutes. 3 minutes? Is it 3 minutes? 3 per second. 3%. No, this is actually more like half a minute of VP lead when you're free capping the enemy team. So, sorry for my failed maths a little bit. But yeah, it's basically very... Oh, wow. This howitzer is very much on the field. This is a very much aggressive and too far forward. Definitely not a good idea. Stug is going to be pretty much massacred by these bazookas. This is the weakness of the Stug that I already mentioned, so no really need to say anything about it. Ostruben Reserve being again activated. Very good usage of that to get out a lot of Ostruben and getting out. Hopefully should start remanning a little bit of the support weapons that are lying on the ground, that have been lying on the ground for a little while. Nicely stealing the pack, so St. George doing what I told them to do. Unfortunately, using the Sherman Firefly a little bit wrong. You do not need to get close to any kind of infantry, especially AT infantry. So the Tiger is on the field, 13 CPs, very nice. That's going to be very bad for the Allies. Stug, another Stug going very close, being very lucky that the pack and the Sherman Firefly missed. So now, about the Tiger, in this matchup, obviously the Tiger can always be a pretty good vehicle. It's very all-rounded heavy tank. It's pretty fast, pretty accurate gun, pretty powerful gun, pretty good armor, pretty good HP. It's just generally decent at everything. But in this matchup, the Tiger needs to be very careful about the Sherman Fireflies and the Stolen Pack, and possibly even the air supremacy operation. Though, the Germans don't really know that St. George's commando operations because he hasn't used any of the doctrine features yet. Possibly going Royal Engineers or Vanguard would have been way better for him. Nice grenade, almost wiping out this infantry section. This Tiger should actually just focus them down with the MG42. Could have definitely dealt a lot of damage. These infantry sections are going to be very lucky to escape. They should have definitely died. So we have artillery piece number 2. No, this is artillery piece number 1. Bundle grenade on the infantry blob that's trying to take out the artillery piece. That's, again, too aggressive. Should have been placed over here. Bundle grenade going to... Oh! Oh! That grenade. Killing the retreating the American infantry squad as well as the Panzer Grenadiers. Americans losing a crap load of units. Oh, air supremacy operation going down, massacring whatever German defenses were there, especially this PaK-40, and almost taking out this Panzer IV. Panzer IV under artillery fire from the base howitzers. So this definitely needs to retreat. Oh, almost taken out. So what just happened here is that the Americans tried a very big frontal push for this howitzer, which is a really tempting target because it's just so far forward, you know, and got completely shut down by the Germans from both angles. Lost a lieutenant, lost a couple vet-free riflemen, which is bad. He did manage to take out one vet-free Panzer Grenadier, but he did not accomplish taking out the howitzer. And what Hovke is doing is very nice. He's fortifying up this area with command and healing bunkers around the howitzer. Now what he's going to do is upgrade with an MG, but what he should have done is planted minefields around here, both anti-infantry and anti-tank. Now the reason I say this is because This bunker is going to be pretty easily taken out by vehicles, but if you plant minefields, you can deal with both infantry and vehicles, and use your howitzer that's very much overextended as bait for whatever kind of trap you want to lay. So, looks like a counter push from Ostrupen is going to be completely shut down by MGs, stolen MG42s, which are up to Vet 2. Very nice. This captain is still alive with 3 levels of veterancy, so very nice unit preservation on that. Unfortunately, unit preservation for the other allied units has been fairly lackluster. A little bit better on the German side, but not that much better. Especially Gusen. Gusen has been preserving his Panzer Grenadiers well. Pofke also needs to work on unit preservation. So the howitzer is starting to bombard this area, as I said it should do. Oh, this priest actually. This priest was onto the field. I didn't think he would have done anything, but it's actually got 15 kills, so I'm sorry for missing whatever barrage it got 15 kills on. Right now it's bombarding this area with the bunker, so very nice usage of artillery from the allies. Both artillery and airstrikes being utilized very effectively against the German static positions. What they really need to do right now is press whatever advantage they have. They're really disorganizing the Germans, and just putting their defenses in disarray with this artillery bombardment, you know, so they could just push up for the victory. But the priest is going to almost be taken out by the Panzer Grenadiers, nicely avoiding that very bad circumstance. So I like what this American is doing, Schofield. As I said, flanking right now, flanking this defensive position is the key to success. So nicely also throwing down artillery on it. You know, as you keep the enemy defenses pinned with artillery, you flank around. Because at this point, the German mobile forces are pretty much non-existent. The Tiger is there, but you don't know, and you don't know if whether or not it's being repaired. But since you haven't seen it for a while, you can assume that it's not being repaired. And also, if it shows up, you can just retreat. So the Americans are going to regain the south, well, the middle, under mortar fire, and also artillery duels. So we had the Jackson coming onto the field. I agree with the Jackson, extra anti-armor support. Mortar half-track, again, going to be very much exposed to whatever anti-tank the Germans have because of its very short range, which is why I think it's not too great of a unit. These infantry, these Panzer IV should not approach this infantry, and also this Firefly, nicely using the tulip rockets to snipe this tank before it can do anything, right into the face. Unfortunately, the Allies right now are lacking anti-infantry because these MGs that were holding back the German infantry have been pretty much destroyed by the German indirect fire. Oh, what was that? Mortar half-track. Mortar half-track killed, but the crew was actually microed out in time, which is good. Stug going to come and force back the Sherman Fireflies for a bit, but this is a very dangerous spot to be for the Stug. He's very lucky that these Fireflies didn't stick around too much. Oh, nicely taking out the Firefly, going to get abandoned. And this Stug is going to take out the Jackson, so we have, looks like a major breakthrough coming out from the Axis. Unfortunately for the Stug, it missed, and now it's going to be torn apart by these Allied Shrek teams. But the Tiger is on prioritized vehicles, so it cannot support it in any kind of way. Thankfully for the Germans, the Vet Stug, very important, survived. It's important that Vet Stug survive because of the target weak point. Target weak point is just very, very effective, especially against like flanking Allied medium tanks. So Ostrupenblob going to massacre these riflemen thanks to sheer numbers, avoiding the grenades very nicely. Now the choice of upgrading a lot of bazookas on your riflemen is very much hurting you now, because once your lieutenant dies, once your MGs start dropping, and once you get Jacksons instead of anti-infantry vehicles, your anti-infantry capability is starting to lack very greatly. And now what happens is, with a lot of games, the Allies in the late game, when they lose the initiative and start going on to defensive, they overload on either anti-tank or anti-infantry, and then the other the other branch of the German army, so to speak, overtakes one of the two, you know, the weaker side. In this case, the infantry overtook the weak Allied anti-infantry, and then clears the way for the other, you know, forces. In this case, the infantry cleared the way by taking out AT guns and anti-armor vehicles like the Jackson and the Fireflies, and now the German armor can push up. Unfortunately, this Sherman Firefly was used wrongly. What you need to do with the Sherman Firefly is keeping it as much as possible at range. It's not a medium tank in the sense that you need to use it flanking like you would a Cromwell or a Sherman or a T-34, or an EZ-8 for that matter, or a Comet. It's a bit like the Panther, only the Panther actually has enough armor to survive being used as a flanking tank. Speaking of Panthers, here's a Panther and Tiger, pretty deadly combo. Going to be very bad for any kind of Allied armor coming up. Yeah, what was I talking about? The Firefly really is more of a tank destroyer than a medium tank in its role in Company of Heroes, because of its weak performance against infantry, its weak turret rotation, its weak armor, and its weak speed, but excellent anti-tank damage. You really need to use it as an anti-tank, and as a tank destroyer essentially. So a lot of artillery going down. I really approve of the Allies' use of artillery, but I already explained they overloaded a bit on the anti-tank, which of course in the game you cannot know whether or not you're overloading on anti-tank, but you can definitely know whether or not you do not have enough anti-infantry, and the Allies definitely should have prepared for that once they were forced onto the defensive. Again, as the Allies, your main strategy in 2v2 is just keep the initiative as much as possible, and the way you do that is once you're running headlong into a German wall of steel and bunkers and artillery, you flank as much as possible. You go from unsuspected directions as much as possible, especially because the British decided to not go for any kind of comets or emplacements, anything that would, you know, allow them to be very fixy, you know, Churchills, you know, any kind of really survivable British units that, you know, usually are very common. They didn't go for that. They went for pretty squishy Fireflies, and yeah, pretty much. So the late game of the Allies at that point was just entirely dependent on keeping the strategic surprise on the Germans. And now that the Allies lost momentum, lost surprise, lost initiative to the Germans, it will be very hard for them to come back, unfortunately. So it looks like this Centaur managed to go on a little bit of a cleanup of these Ostlupen, nicely forcing them back to the base. The Stubb tried to flank, but he actually overshot, which was kind of funny if you were watching. So these bunkers are actually not being upgraded anymore. I'm not sure if it's him forgetting because he has a shitload of munitions. Again, one way to really improve your play, Popke, would be to use a lot more mines. What you should be doing is getting a couple more engineer units and using mines. I kind of like now what he's doing with the Stubbs. Now that I see, you know, it part of a larger playstyle of just being, you know, more defensive. Howitzer being set on counter battery, which it's actually interesting. It could be a good idea against the Allied artillery. I'm not sure if it will fire on the British base because it's technically artillery, but also technically not. It will probably not fire, if anything, because it's out of range, but it would be kind of interesting to test. So we have a squad of vet-free grenadiers. Finally, more of these should have been on the field, but the unit preservation for grenadiers has been pretty bad out of the Germans. So these vet-free grenadiers are going to start being the powerhouse that they are usually in the late game. Going to take out a lot of Allied support weaponry in the back lines. The Allies are completely lacking cohesion at this point. They have no more front line, no more infantry. They have just been outflanked on all levels. And at this point, can't do much. Again, I was talking about Popke's playstyle. I kind of like what he's doing, but I also think that if the Allies would have been more aggressive with flanking maneuvers as they were doing in the early game, this kind of fortifying around a key area to support your ally would not have worked out. Another thing that the Allies could have done, other than just being very much mobile, very, you know, I should say crafty with flanks and stuff like that, what they could have also done is have the British go for a little bit more of a traditional playstyle with either Churchills or Comets, you know, being pumped out in greater numbers, supporting one Sherman Firefly instead of the 3 that he built. Sherman Firefly used very conservatively, obviously, along with perhaps a 17 pounder to hold back any kind of German heavy armor, along with MGs to hold down one side, like this side, and then using the Americans' mobility, instead of going with pure Jacksons and Priests, going Shermans. Yeah, going with Shermans, a lot of Shermans, and just using a lot of flanking. That could have also been a viable option. So now the Stoogs have finally come out and destroyed all of the fighting positions, which, let's say, about time. The side has been pretty much undefended for the whole game. Another weakness of the Germans right now is that they neglected harassing, which is always bad, no matter how defensive you want to play. So we have the bunkers fam going down. Going to be pretty impenetrable for the Allies. So as you can see, the more half-track was firing, and now the counter battery is going to possibly destroy it. Man, I've been talking so much. Yeah, as you can see, this counter barrage has actually been pretty effective. And there it goes, vehicle crew and more half-track going down. One thing that this American player has been doing really well, and should probably continue doing in the future, is popping out his vehicle crews before, you know, vehicles dying. He's been doing that very well. I appreciate that very much. It's something I definitely need to improve with my American play. Now, these Stoogs represent a pretty impenetrable wall of AT, but what the Allies have been doing to counter the German vehicles of this guy to get tank destroyers is countered by the Stoogs. A not very talked about fact about Stoogs is that they are very effective against most Allied tank destroyers, bar perhaps Su-76s and Su-85s with a lot of vet that can match this fire rate, because the Stoogs fire way faster than the Jackson and the Firefly. That means that the low armor of the Stoog doesn't really matter, because a high armor vehicle is going to be penetrated by the Jackson and the Firefly anyway. The weaknesses of the Stoog don't really matter that much, you know, because it can still take about 3 shots from a Jackson and a Firefly to die. But it also needs only 3 shots into the weak Jackson and Firefly with its, you know, relatively low penetration gun. It's always going to penetrate, and since it has superior rate of fire, you know, if it needs 3 shots to kill something and that needs 3 shots to kill it, whoever has the best rate of fire wins. Also, target weak point allows it to get, you know, more shots off by stunning the opposing tank destroyer. So the Stoog is really effective against American and British tank destroyers. So now finally we have some commandos. This has been the second, I believe, usage of commando regiment out of St. George. Definitely this has been a mistake to pick the commando regiment. Nicely using tulip rockets to kill this Panther. It's going to get out because of its Tiger coming to assist, but again, this is the correct way to use Sherman Fireflies. Just kite back as much as possible, use tulips. Where did the commandos get called down? In a pretty bad location. Yeah, like I said, misusing, or rather not using, your commander tree has been a very bad mistake for you, St. George. Unfortunately, I didn't get, you know, I didn't get to cash what, I didn't get to cash whatever other doctrines he had. So yeah, I cannot tell you what better doctrine would be, but yeah, whatever. So looks like the game is pretty much over. I'll fast forward. There's really not much the Allies can do at this point, except, well, yeah. Well, Panzerwerfer coming out last second. I already talked about what the Allies could have done. What the Germans could have done differently is played a bit more aggressive as Puffkin with Puffkin. Like I said, I have pretty much nothing wrong with what Luxembourg did. Well, except a little bit of unit preservation early game, but you know that can always happen, and you know that comes with practice. And yeah, pretty much game's over. So the Allies are going to possibly surrender. I'll just fast forward. The Allies have no hope at this point. They just have no units. The Germans have managed to fortify pretty much every map. So that was a very good game. Thank you for sending it in. It was a pleasure to cast it. Again, also looking for the win. Yeah, this usage of Austin Reserve was pretty good. Really strong trade. And the game's over. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this cast. And I'll see you soon.